Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I know it's a somber day, but I'm your host, Kyle, and I'm joined by my co-host, Michael Hall. Reed should be joining us here momentarily, but we are rejoined by special guest Logan Paulsen. And before we get into this disaster of a game yesterday, I just wanted to say the Burgundy Zone is a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listenfrederick.com. But Logan, it's a sad, sad day here in Washington. The Commanders fall to 1-2. How are you feeling today?
I think a little, I think surprise might be the word. I think, when I was previewing and kind of analyzing this game, I thought, the defense is going to struggle and the offense is going to kind of have to carry the day. And then it was kind of the reverse. I know a lot of fans say, well, they scored 24 points on the defense. But I think if you look at them, like them by position, by a man, like they did a pretty good job, and then for the offense to go out and just not support them in any way, I think is disappointing and surprising. And, if you would have told me that the Philadelphia Eagles would only have 24 points in the game, I said, we got a good shot to win that game because the offense has been pretty dynamic at times over the course of the year. And I thought that they would match up well with this Philadelphia defense, but unfortunately that wasn't the case.
No, it wasn't. But look, they allowed 9 sacks in this game, which is an alarming number. It reminds us of the Carson Wentz game back at FedEx Field for 2020 in the first game of the season. Kind of break down those sacks if you can. I know you've watched the film a little bit, being able to dissect it, but I know Coach Rivera in his presser said it was probably a combination of things. What did you see with those 9 sacks?
I mean, I don't disagree with that. I think when you watch the film, that's the thing that jumps out at you, is that it's not one thing necessarily. It's guys making good plays on the defensive side of the football. It's, maybe a play call, not giving the quarterback an opportunity, mental error by the receiver in terms of route running the wrong route, not being in the right spot. Like I said, they're making plays. Carson hold the football too long. Play call, play selection on down and distance. I think that's also a relevant factor. And that's, so I really think when you look at a day like that by the offensive line, the responsibility falls to everybody, right? Like I mentioned the play caller, I mentioned the receivers, I mentioned the O-line, I mentioned the quarterback. And that's a huge part of a day like that for everybody, and that's part of being in the NFL. You have days like that, but what can you learn from this? What can you glean from this? And how can you move forward? Because you do have a heck of a pass rusher coming up here in Micah Parsons. So.
Yeah, definitely. And it's been two straight weeks now, 2 straight games where the offense has come out versus Detroit and last week against Philly, where they just looked really flat and just kind of just out of it. What goes into the offense coming out flat like that? Is it preparation? Is it practice during the week? Or is it just the team in front of you is just better than you?
I don't know if I have the right answer. I can just speak to what I've done and what I've experienced on different teams. And one of the elements that I've been privy to is just kind of not feeling prepared. Like they come out in a slightly different look than you were ready for. And you're a little bit behind the 8 ball. You got to go through a full series, come back to the sideline, make some adjustments. The defense evolves the play calling as well. So you're always a little bit behind in terms of your adjustment and your modification of the offense. And that can be a really frustrating experience, for an offensive player and then, for a play caller as well. So of that, I think they did a good job disguising coverages against Carson, which is something they'd shown, but they hadn't shown to the level of like the comprehensive level that they showed against the Commanders. So I think that's part of it. Also, I think the pressure early really affected Carson Wentz's ability to kind of stand in the pocket and make clean decisions. And just after the first probably 2-3 drives, just looked unsettled. And I think that all kind of plays a factor in the offense starting slow and never really start slow, but never really being able to find a gear at all. So I think that's all relevant in terms of this performance and the offense's performance on Sunday.
Yeah, and Logan, looking at it in hindsight, we should have known that the Eagles they're more built in the trenches, right? Defensive line, offensive line. They got maulers down there, big dudes. And that's where, coincidentally, where the Commanders are most hurt at the current moment. And so we should be looking back at that and saying, like, is the D-line too hurt to be effective on our team? And it's similar to the offensive line?
It's funny you say that. I actually thought the defensive line did an excellent job in this game. I thought John Allen did an excellent job batting balls, being disruptive in the run game. Payne, obviously, the safety is a big deal, but his down-to-down production was pretty good. And I think, Ridgeway, I think, struggled a little bit, the young guy out of Arkansas, but I think they've found a nice depth piece in free agency, like in
Right.
week 2, which is crazy. So
I'm a huge fan of Ridgeway, by the way.
I mean, I liked him coming out. I think he's got a lot of stuff to work on, obviously, but I think there's something there. So I think you feel good about that and his addition and what that means in terms of preserving the health of the two starters. Then us, F.A. Obata had a nice game. Montez Sweat was a little quiet, but flashed at times. So I think despite all of the injuries, the defensive line for the Commanders did an excellent job. And the offensive line, I think, it's tough, man, because like the Philadelphia defensive line hadn't shown that level of pass rush up until this point. I think obviously Josh Sweat was a guy that, your antennas had to be up and ready because he's a dynamic pass rusher. And he showed that. He showed why he's one of the, the best pass rushers in the NFL, in my opinion. I think he's probably top 15 guys, which is saying something considering the depth of pass rushers around the league. So great pass rusher. Brandon Graham came out of nowhere. Obviously he's been a productive player for a long time, but I think the matchup really favored him and what he does in terms of, matching up with Cosme. And then Fletcher Cox kind of is rejuvenated all of a sudden, looking like a different player. Hargrave, very quiet for the first 2 games, gets a sack. So, I would say that to me, I was a little surprised how productive they were, given what they'd shown on film through the first 2 games. I'm talking Philly's D-line.
What I meant with our D-line is like I think that the world of John Allen, the fact that he's still out there playing hurt, and obviously is not like the force that he generally usually is. And so like usually you would bank on your defensive line if you're going to be on the field that much to be able to have the rotation, to stay fresh. And because of those injuries, that was kind of taken away, was kind of like the basis of my question.
Yeah, and I mean, rotation or not, man, those guys played their faces off, and I think that's important for fans to understand. Like when you go back and watch it, all 22, like did they get got sometimes? Sure, but everyone gets got.
Yeah.
I think just John's like ability to just make plays and be disruptive was something that they needed in this game to stop the run, and he did an excellent job. Like John specifically, Payne, like those guys did a really nice job, and they deserve a ton of credit. And so, I don't want people saying, "Oh, they didn't play well," or because I think that's just a uninformed opinion, quite frankly. Like they did a good job. So,
right. And I guess some silver lining or maybe a bright spot in this is over the past couple of weeks, a guy that's been criticized since his rookie year, Jamin Davis, by the fans, media, even the coaching staff a little bit this year, has been kind of flashing a little bit the past couple of games. What have you seen from him, and are you seeing his growth as a football player and a linebacker?
Yeah, I mean, this is like the best game he's had as a Commander, I would say. At least by PFF grade. I don't disagree with that. I think he just showed up. He's playing more confident. He's playing more physical. Like even when he's making mistakes, he's making them fast. He was good in coverage. It was nice to see that. Cole also an excellent game from him. So it's just crazy, man. Like when you look at this defense, like to a man, they played really, really well. They just did a nice job. Benjamin St. Juste did an excellent job. Kam Curls minus a tackle here or there did a really nice job. So to me, that's a frustrating thing to be talking about, is just how well that group played. I mentioned the defensive line, the linebackers. Yeah. Benjamin St. Juste, I mean, probably had the game of his career.
I was going to ask you about him.
Yeah, he just did such a nice job in terms of being competitive at the catch point, playing with great vision, playing with great feet. And, he got by A.J. Brown, but that's what A.J. Brown does. People get got by A.J. Brown. And for him to be in tight coverage every play, even Kendall Fuller, the big plays he gave up, like to be in the pocket of the receiver like that and be in a contested catch situation, like kudos to those guys, man. They competed. And like that's one thing about playing the NFL. Like there are good players across the league, and you're going to get got, for lack of a better term. But those guys just played so dang hard, and they played so dang effectively. So to me, it's as an offensive player, like this game is so frustrating to talk about, because to me, it all kind of rests and resides on the offense. Like just think about this. If the offense is able to kind of generate 10 more plays in that first half, you probably go in 17-0 at halftime, or even, like, I don't even 10-0, because they lose those possessions. Philadelphia does. And I think that's something that is really frustrating from an offensive perspective, because they just kind of let those guys out to dry a little bit.
Speaking my language, Logan, that was my key to the game, was starting early for the offense. And speaking of the past 2 weeks, the offense has not started early, and they have kind of been lackluster offensively. Is there anything that you're seeing? Is there like a common denominator? Do you think it possibly play calling, or is it just simply execution?
I mean, it's hard to kind of differentiate the two, I would say. Like when I go through the game offensively play by play, you're like, there are plays where you're like, is this the right call in this situation? And there's also times where it's like, this was not executed effectively and this was not protected effectively, right? And so when you go through it like that, you kind of realize that in a game like this, it's a little bit of both, you know. It's not one or the other. It's the play calling could be a little bit better. And I think it's important for fans, and it's important to remind myself, quite frankly, that the play caller is never perfect,
right?
And the players are never perfect. And so it's just about kind of being the most effective version of yourself and kind of limiting some of the risk associated with certain calls. And like, could Scott be better? Sure. Right. But
I'm sure he'd say that.
Yeah. But I don't think he called like a bad game necessarily. You know, I just think back to the first drive where it's like, you know, everyone's saying, oh, they got to get the ball out of Carson's hands. Right. The ball gets batted by Jordan Davis, right? And then they try to get back to another like run, and then like they just couldn't stack plays. It was just then later in the game they run the same RPO and he misses the throw, right? So obviously it's the right call. The guy's open, misses the throw. It's second and 10, right? They miss the throw. It's a McKissick on the choice route.
Yep.
It's 3rd and 10, right? Then you got to take a shot down the field, or you know, you throw a screen, and the chances of that converting are not high. So I think it's just, again, like those were the right calls. Like they would have worked, just didn't make the throws, didn't make the catches. And that's, I think, one of the frustrating things about this game. Because then you go the reverse, you say, man, Scott probably would like a different call here and put the guys in a bad spot. And then guys running the wrong route. It was an ugly game from an execution standpoint, ugly game from an assignment standpoint in a lot of ways. And I think that's what's really frustrating, is like they had an opportunity to come out and do some things. And even late in the game, you know, Jahan drops the ball. It doesn't matter because the center, you know, roughing the center or whatever. Terry drops a ball that, you know, would have gotten a 4th and 2 instead of 4th and 22. Would have been a tough catch, but that's something I think we all expect Terry to make. So again, it's just a tough deal offensively because there are so many mistakes. There's so many play calls that were on kind of the fence. And I think that's the frustrating thing about the slow start and then the kind of the lackluster execution throughout the game.
Yeah, so basically you answered my question exactly how I wanted you to. Essentially, there is no common denominator. It's just
Right.
basically like plugs in the dam, and just a new one keeps popping up, and you're trying to cover them.
Yeah, I think that's a fair analogy, and it's too bad because like I think if you look at the individual grades, I think you'd probably say, oh, these guys graded out pretty good, but it's just like they kind of are making the mistakes kind of in sequence or in rhythm of each other, and that is. And I've been a part of teams like that, and it's extremely frustrating because you go to the meeting with the coach and you say, hey, like if we execute here, like this game's completely different. But I don't really I didn't find a lot of solace in that as a player, and I don't find a lot of solace in it now as a fan and an analyst that, you know, covers this team. Like you gotta find a way to get those things done. And I don't know if that's more practice. I don't know if that's more prep. You know, I'm a guy that's always a big believer and you need to prep more. If the result isn't what you want, you need to prep more. And that would be my advice to Scott, you know, like just prep more, kind of leave no stone unturned. But you know, he might be doing everything he can already. So I'm not privy to that information, but that's just how I am. That's how I'm wired. And that's the advice I would give to see if you can get out of this rut. You work harder till you're out of it, kind of thing.
I'm all about that.
Right, definitely. And you mentioned Micah Parsons earlier. They have Dallas coming up this Sunday. What are some things that this offensive line and just Scott Turner and Carson Wentz need to do on Sunday to kind of slow down Micah Parsons and the pass rush?
Well, you know, it's interesting. I think on the whole, the tackles are pretty good football players, right? And I think you feel pretty good about them. But with a guy like Micah Parsons, who's got the second highest win rate as a pass rusher in the NFL based on PFF metrics, like you need to do something pretty creative. So I would expect to see a lot of chip help. I'd expect to see a lot of double teams, maybe leaving a tight end in protection, you know, on those 3rd and long situations. And I also think it's really important to kind of stay out of, this is maybe intuitively obvious, but making sure the execution on 1st and 2nd down is good. So you're out of these 3rd and long, obvious passing situations. Like when you're going through the game yesterday, you're like, gosh, like they're in 3rd and 10 again. And like Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, a big point of emphasis for them was like, can we do everything in our power to stay out of 3rd and long situations? Because those are not high win rates for the offense. They're not high win rates for the offensive line. So what's the plan on 1st and 2nd down so that we have manageable or no 3rd down? And that would be my thought here, is like, let's make sure our 1st, 2nd down game plan is really dialed in and really ready to execute. So we're not dealing with 10 to 15 third and long situations. That's just not a tenable solution offensively, even with chip help, even with extra protection. It's just not a viable thing to be doing down and down, because you might have a double team on Micah Parsons, but if I'm a smart defensive coordinator, I'm going to formation him so that I'm away from that. I can move him around the piece. He's a movable chess. I'm going to move him around the board. He's a movable chess piece. So that would be my thought on that, is let's just clean up the first and second down stuff, put ourselves in a better position on third down.
That was fantastic, Logan. Now, to wrap this up, I only have a couple more questions for you. I do want to bring this back just a little bit. Kind of talk to us about Montez Sweat and his game last, because people are talking he was non-existent, he wasn't there. But Montez Sweat looked like he was doing well in the run game. Give us what your thoughts.
I think that's the thing, maybe a misconception by fans. I think Montez is, quite frankly, a better run defender than he is a pass rusher at this point. Like, I think he's got a good pass rush. I think he needs to evolve as a pass rusher. But I think he had a fine game. He was quiet, no doubt, but I think there were times where he was getting pressure. He was pursuing hard to the football, and there are games where you don't have an impact. And especially when you're playing from behind, you're not going to have the same impact that you are against Jacksonville, for example. Like, think about the last couple series of the Jacksonville game. Like, he was unblockable. Everyone in the stadium knew what he was going to do, knew the rush, and he was able to win. And I want to see him in more of those situations, because, quite frankly, I think he's a more effective pass rusher than Chase Young when they're both healthy, at this point in their careers. And I want to see more of that. And the only way to do that is if the offense can hold up their end of the bargain, quite frankly. Like, that's it. And I think it's also important to note that that's, and for my money, the best offensive line in the NFL, and maybe the best tackle duo in the NFL. Jordan Mailata is one of one genetically, and Lane Johnson is a special football player, maybe the top 3 right tackle in the NFL. So again, like, that is a tough matchup for anybody. And I think it's great to see John and Allen step up. F.A. Obata getting a pressure and a sack on a stunt. Like, that's great. Jamie getting 2 sacks off of pursuit plays. Like, that's where that you gotta win against this type of front with that. So, I think people want to be critical of Montez, but I think he had a pretty solid game. It wasn't his best game, no, but it was a solid performance by him, and one that I'm sure he looks at and says, man, there's some plays I could have made, but there's also some plays that he did make just from doing his job, which is something that's important in the context of this defense.
Yeah, and then the next one for you, I know we going back just one more time. The offensive line, given obviously everyone had their hand in the fire, but at this moment in time, would you think it's wise to move guys around?
I mean, what I like.
So, for example, like moving Cosme to right guard, having Lucas at right tackle, to be able to combat that kind of big body up front, because I think that weakness was shown this past weekend. If you have a big body defensive tackle, you can, and good pass rusher, you can get to the Carson Wentz pretty easily.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I actually like, we've talked about this before, I like Cosme at guard quite a bit. I'd like to see him play a little bit more guard.
Yeah.
But I do think if you're going to do that, you probably wanted to draft a tackle in this last year's draft. This was a very tackle-heavy draft.
Agreed.
There's a lot of guys in the later rounds that you could have made selections on that I think could have contributed to this year. It kind of goes back to the defensive line thing, like with regard to Settle and Ioannidis, and I think Ioannidis had kind of worn out his welcome here and he didn't want to be here anymore. But Settle not re-signing him is a big deal now, especially with the focus of the injury of Big Phil and stuff. So, I think if that's something you wanted to do, if that's something you wanted to be kind of planning for, you need another tackle on the roster,
right? Quite
frankly, just someone who can provide depth. Like Chris Paul's had a nice camp, but he's a guard. Sadiq Charles, guard. Like, there's a lot of very talented, high upside guards, but there's one backup tackle. And I think that's the thing. When I look at that, I say you're taking a position where you don't have a lot of depth, and you're demanding that depth hold up for the rest of the year. And I just think that's not good foresight. So if that's what you're, what I'm saying? Like, I like that. I like that plan. I think you're getting your better football players on the field that way. But I just don't think it's tenable because of the injury bug. And let's say Lucas gets hurt.
Right.
Then what's the solution? You move Cosme back out.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just, and then you don't have a swing tackle. So I think that's poor planning from the offseason standpoint, if that's something you wanted to do.
No, I totally get it, because what you're saying is if you have a leaky roof, there's no reason to go and use your leaky roof stuff to go fill up the basement. It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
I totally get what you're saying. Last one. Dallas facing this weekend, with or without Dak, who's somebody on the Dallas offense that Washington has to be keen in on and focusing on?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think, with all the stuff that Jerry Jones has said about Ezekiel Elliott and how the offense needs to run through him, especially with Dak, he's actually been fairly productive, surprisingly. He looks like kind of maybe not like old Zeke, but definitely a productive running back, a guy who's making a lot out of maybe subpar conditions with regards to the offensive line there. So I think if I'm planning, I'm saying let's take Zeke off the table for them and let's make Cooper Rush beat us.
Okay.
And I think that's a viable solution to that. And that's something that I'm going to keep an eye on, is like taking that out, because I think Gallup's coming back this week, and that's another kind of firepower piece to that offense. But he's coming off an ACL, so let's make Cooper Rush beat this football team and take away Ezekiel as much as possible, and see what happens. Because I do think this is not the same kind of group as Philly, and it's offensively or defensively. So like this team, the Commanders, have to come out and put their best foot forward in a tough road game, in a tough environment, quite frankly, and get to 2-2.
Hey, real quick, just answer with a one word answer: better or worse, the Washington defense without William Jackson III.
Ooh, buddy. I will say this: Benjamin St. Juste played really well. I'll say that.
Okay,
so I'm not gonna
subliminally.
I appreciate you, Logan. Of course,
Yep.
I always appreciate your time. You're so freaking busy, but this is why I love having you on here. You're honest and you just tell us what you see, sir. I can't thank you enough. Make sure you go follow Logan's podcast, Take Command. Also, go follow him on Instagram at Logan_Paulsen82. Thank you, brother. Have a good night. Hopefully, this week ends in a better note.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Look forward to talking to you
Appreciate it,
again
man.
soon.
Of course,
All right,
brother.
Later, guys.
Bye. All right, everybody. Just talk with Logan, and Reed wanted us to I forgot to tell Logan, but he wanted us to tell him that he's purposely avoiding him.
I like his answer to that last question, because I think we both know what he wanted to say.
I do wonder if his play, Benjamin St. Juste play over the weekend, is going to make them think about that slot, because you and I talked about Wild Goose. I don't know. I woke up early this morning. I was in a mood. And so I just started tweeting, and like it didn't even make sense, because you're right, because Benjamin St. Juste did play on the outside. I just kept thinking about that Quez Watkins penalty early on, where they just go straight at Wild Goose. He gets that the penalty, which gives him 30 yards downfield automatically. Just terrible, absolutely terrible.
I was actually surprised they attacked him with Quez Watkins and not like AJ Brown or Devontae Smith. So I mean, kind of got built on that one, because that could have been a crazy deep shot, just like the Monday Night Massacre is like the way to start the game. So glad that didn't happen, at least.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, and this episode is called The Washington Blues for a reason, my friend, just because this is all too familiar for us. But before we are joined by our next guest, let's get your who's doing the dishes, because our guy Jeff Miles expertly educated us on saying that sending people out to work in the yard is probably not socially acceptable. And I'm sorry for that. That's my fault. I wasn't thinking ahead. I'm not smart. I won't ever say I am. But let's get who's doing the dishes, Hall. Let's name 3 guys. Who's doing the dishes?
3 guys.
Oh, they don't have to be dishes, because it's gonna be a lot of dishes, because all those people can't do dishes at once. Who's doing chores around the house?
I was just gonna say chores. I gotta go with Scott Turner, honestly. Just for the simple fact of this is 2 weeks in a row where the offense comes out and you see that what you scripted and what your game plan was is not working. And against Detroit, you went into halftime, you switched some things up and came out in the second half firing on all cylinders, yes. But against Philly, you saw that the offensive line was getting manhandled pretty much. I think it was 4 of the first 6 dropbacks were sacks, or like 3 of the first 6 or 5 or whatever ridiculous stat it is. So you needed to run the ball a little bit more, maybe throw some screens, maybe just keep that defensive line on their toes, because obviously it was I know a lot of people were saying that they knew the snap count on the silent count, because one of the guards, I think either it was Trey Turner or Norwell, was given a tell. Wes Schweitzer and his snaps were kind of slow and getting off target to Carson Wentz, which in the grand scheme of things will mess up the timing of a passing play and all that different type of stuff. So it was just, he just needed to adjust a little bit sooner, and it's been 2 weeks of that so far. And if they come out like that against Dallas next week, it's not going to end up good again, just like it did this week. So Scott Turner's got to be got some chores to do there, buddy.
Yeah, I think that's warranted. I gave him my game beer in week 1. I think that he deserves chores in this week, and it's unfortunate because Jamal has posted a bunch of videos, and of the offense, and you just see every passing play, everything is covered. I mean, they know exactly what's coming. I don't know the reason for it. I don't want to speculate. I don't want to theorize. All I want to know is we just got to be able to get the ball out, and we got to be able to get some yards down the field. Scoring, not getting points until a safety in the late of the fourth quarter and not getting offensive points until the 2 minute of the fourth quarter is unacceptable. Not in just any NFL, because obviously this is the NFL. Everyone is competitive. Everyone is good. But especially for divisional games, and especially in a game where they are taunting you the entire week, saying we're coming down there, we're taking over your stadium, we're going to run you off the field. And there was nobody there to stand up and say, nah, you're not going to do that. And that was probably the most disappointing thing. So for me, who's doing some chores? It's my man Matzko. And I'm sorry for that. And I really am. It's unfortunate because the offensive line injuries have really put a hamper on them. They haven't been able to prep all that much. But that being said, it always goes to leadership. And so those guys not being put in the right position, those guys not having the right plan, because obviously all the Eagles did was rush 4 and sit 7 back. And the 4 was so effective, it was insane that by the time that you look downfield, everything is covered. And Carson tries to get out of the pocket, but he's not fast enough to get outside the pocket. Dude, it was just a nightmare scenario. So for me, it's the offensive line. You have to be able to have some stability. I talked about this all last week of saying, like, when are you going to stop the bleeding? And that didn't happen. And so I would like the offensive line to be able to at least bring some solidness to this team at some point during these games. But now we are joined by our last co-host, Mr. Michael Reed. What's up, dude? We're giving out chores. Hall has given out his chore to Scott Turner. I gave out my chore to John Matzko.
Oh, you guys took all the good ones.
Yeah.
So, I mean, who else deserves a chore besides the entire team?
I was gonna say, I don't know. There's a lot of options still left on the table.
Yeah, there's guys. You guys are leaving this. I'm gonna give a chore to everybody. This is a team loss. No, I'm sorry, but everybody. I got a lot of gardening I want done, and if I could have like 53 men plus, then the coaching staff do it for me. I'll get that done like a day, and I'll have an entire farm. So I'm making the team do my entire job. Not my job, but you know what I mean.
It's their job now.
Yeah, they're doing it for everybody.
No, you're absolutely right, because that was putrid. It was inexcusable. I felt horrible for the defense because it felt like you ever carried like groceries inside. You got like 6 bags in each, and you get to the front door and you're holding it up and you're like, I don't know if I can hold it. It's too heavy, trying to open the front door.
Hands.
Right, you're like, oh, it's about to fall. It's about to fall, and it's like a can of soup. You're like, I can't. And it felt like that was the defense. The defense was holding on for dear life, trying to keep them in that game, but they kept being forced out onto the field time after time. And it just felt like the boat was going to sink at some point. And the points never came, and so the defense just ended up falling flat. They were tired by that point. And that's what kind of went into my whole thing with Logan with the defensive line, because they were on so much, it just seemed like they were worn out by the third quarter. You know what I mean? And I know that they did a good job. They did for everything that they could. It just, for how much they were on the field, it was an uphill battle for them. And it's very, very unfortunate.
It's it's what. So Logan's gone.
Yeah.
Tell him to come back.
No.
Oops, I'm sorry I missed him. Just kidding. I'm not. I did that on purpose. That's why I joined late. I didn't want to be near him. I'm mad at him.
Dude, it's a very, like, when's the last time a Monday has been like this, though? Like, at least last Monday.
Week.
No, but at least last Monday we had the comeback in the second half to at least hold your hat on.
I know. At least it was like one of those things where you could be like, well, at least you could take some good things away from here. Scott Turner did an excellent job in the second half.
Right.
This one, it's like I'm running out of excuses to defend everybody at this point. I think it's overboard when people are saying Rivera should be fired, obviously, and all this stuff. But like, I'm running out of excuses after that. Like, you can't make an excuse. Just everybody was bad. I know everybody did a terrible job this week.
This felt like last year, that week 3 game, I want to say, against Buffalo, where they just came out and they were just looked 10 times, 1,000 times superior than us. We couldn't do anything right. Couldn't get out of our own way. Offense couldn't generate anything except for the long screen to Gibson.
Right.
But I mean, it's one of those games where you just, from start to finish, you're just watching it like, what am I watching and what am I seeing right now, and why is this happening? So
with that, it's also though kind of important to remember that even after that Buffalo game, like, it felt like the sky was falling. but we still went on a win streak and we're still in contention to make the playoffs not too far later. Like we were winning some games, and then of course the injuries and the COVID thing happened. But so it's still a long season. There's still plenty of time to get things turned around. So everybody that's thinking it's the end and already looking forward to next year and stuff, it's like, guys, calm down. It's a long season, longer than it's been since last year, but you know what I mean? They extended it by a game. So there's time. It'll be okay. This happens, unfortunately, and we can still get it right.
Yeah, and Reed, I'm not sure if you remember, but when Rivera was first hired, we all sat here on this panel and we kind of talked about what our expectations were. And one of our concerns with Rivera, we said on this show, was that the offensive line would take a step back because it was our strength at that time. And that's something that had happened to Carolina at the end of his tenure, and that's what I was concerned about. And you kind of saw that yesterday, where we had, Trent Williams, had Brandon Sheriff, and then you see the product from yesterday, and it's like, wow, do we have the horses in the stable for this?
But the thing is, though, that they shouldn't be that bad.
Right.
Like, I mean, they obviously, I know what you're saying. A big step back from Trent Williams and them. I mean, our O-line was ridiculous.
I'm just meaning like in being like,
completely
from strength to weakness.
No, I know what you mean. We all thought that. And then the O-line last year was very good. It was decent. It was very good against the Jaguars. It was decent against Detroit. I know that they had a terrible first half, but I mean, they gave up the sacks and stuff. But then yesterday it was just like, who is this unit? What is going on? Matzko is one of the best O-line coaches in the NFL, and this is just is embarrassing. I don't know.
It's funny you were talking.
Philly
about,
does have a good D-line, by the way.
Like
but
Trent,
they do.
And, yeah, of course they do. It's funny you were talking about Trent and like Sheriff, like John Goshorn came into the warehouse and was just like, dang, 9 sacks, like blah blah blah. He's like, you know what the problem is? And I'm like, yeah, Carson was holding on to the ball too much. And he was like, nah, man, your offensive line sucks. And I was like, no. I was like, we've been playing and plugging and playing guys for the last like 2 years, and they've been above average, if not good. Yeah. He's like, oh, no, you guys lost Sheriff and Williams. It's been downhill since then. I'm like, well, clearly you're just like talking about big name guys. We don't have like big name guys anymore, so that's why you just think that they've been bad. But it's like, no, that's not the case.
Yeah, that's why everybody was surprised.
The most surprising part is because one of the perceived strengths of this team was the offensive line, just because of Coach Matzko. And for 5-6 quarters now out of the last 8, they have been manhandled up front.
So
crazy.
My big concern is that, like, if you were to look at this offensive line, like, and you were to categorize them in a simple aspect, you would look at them and being like the lighter build, but being able to be fast, get outside, move guys around on the outside perimeter, quick guys, more to say. Not like sledgehammers, so to speak, like Trent Williams, for example, who's like that toughness, that Eric Flowers I would consider as a sledgehammer, right? And so going against Jordan Davis, going against Fletcher Cox, that was literally the last thing that you wanted, was to have that agility type of line, because these dudes are so big and so strong. My concern is, what's going to happen when you go against another offensive line like that?
Or when we face Philly again, we face them twice a year. You got to prepare for your division opponents.
Look at the matchup next week on Sunday. You got Michael Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence coming off the edge.
That's what I'm thinking, man. Yeah.
We'll see.
That's gonna be a tough go, man. It really is, but it's hard. This is another quicksand game, and I feel so bad because me and Burrows, like, we didn't argue, but we went back and forth on Twitter last week, and I said, this isn't a consistent theme where in the first half they're down by big and they look completely and totally lost and they take themselves out of the game. Like, it's not consistent. It happens in spurts, but it's not consistent. And of course, the next week they do the same exact thing.
Well, also,
hey, you know what's funny? I did say that when we went through our predictions. I was like, we're gonna end up, we're gonna come out looking lost in the first half, but then I did say second half we'd come back, and we didn't. But so I just want my flowers for that.
Well, also, like, to your point, where it's like it's not a consistent theme, and like they usually come out like that, but this is like a damning stat. Out of the 36 games that Rivera's coached, 9 of them they've gone down. Like a quarter of the games you've coached here, you've gone down by 20 plus before the half. That's not good at all. So it's like, it might not be a consistent theme. Yes, you're right. But it's like, for that to even happen more than like 5 times out of the 3 years you've been here is kind of damning in itself. And I don't know what it is you do to fix it. Obviously, everyone's kind of rebuttal is, Rivera teams always start off slow. They start off slow all the time. They get better as the year goes along, but it's just, why do we have to go through that? Why can't we start off fast? Like,
why can't it just be a normal loss? Why does it have to be totally demoralizing?
Exactly. Right. Like, and I saw this coming too. I knew if we were going to get crushed by Philly, then everyone would be all doom and gloom and fire everyone. This team sucks. It's just crazy that, like, after that first week, everyone's like, "Oh, we have a chance this year," blah blah blah. And then 2 weeks later, it's this roster's horrible. There's no talent on it. This whole coaching staff needs to go. It's
Dude,
like, yo, we're
that's
just riding the wave a
exactly
week ago or 2 weeks ago. What happened? Like,
that's exactly what I was saying last week. I was like, we literally, like, if you would have pulled Twitter a week ago, if we were going to make the playoffs, people go, "Oh yeah, we're going to surprise everybody, man. Did you see what we just did to them? 2 quarters. Imagine us getting a full game like that." And then 1 week, and it was, this team sucks, man. Everybody needs to be fired. And then it's this week. This was the worst thing that could happen.
yeah,
Now it's even
that's what I said. I was
more.
like, Carson, like, you're going to get at least 1 or 2 of these games from Carson a year, which it sucks to say, but that's just been kind of like his track record
That's
over the
how it
last
is.
couple of years.
Yeah.
He picked the worst time and the worst team to do it against. Like, literally.
Absolute worst.
I mean-
I mean, seriously. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to put it all on Carson because I
Oh,
think
no,
that it
without
is
a doubt.
a combination
No,
of everything.
yeah, you can't.
But that being said, let's get into our first fan question, and this is from the Colonel. Reed, going to you. Is our O-line that bad, or is Carson just holding on to the ball too long? Is Philly's defensive secondary so good that many of these were covered sacks?
It's a combination of both things, I think. And like you said, I think you both brought up good point. It was a good matchup for Philly that favored Philly. Kyle, with, like you talked about, I mean, when you look at, even you didn't even mention Javon Hargrove, and
Right.
he had a fantastic game as well. And they just manhandled us. And then I think it was also a combination of Carson holding onto the ball, and some of that can be attributed, man. They have three very good cornerbacks and a very good safety now, and this Eagles defense is for real. Like they're very good, man. I think we always counted them out, and while I do think eventually they're going to hit the typical Philly slump, I do think that right now you don't really want to play them because they're playing with a lot of confidence. And I think it was a combination of things. I don't think it was necessarily one thing that stuck out. It was just a perfect storm of everything that could go wrong and nobody did their part to get us out of it.
Yeah, and I do. I think Reed is perfect with that, Colonel. Basically, it's if it's not one thing, it's another. So you could sit here and say, yeah, it's the one guy getting blown up by Jordan Davis or Fletcher Cox on this play that completely shut it out. You're right. On another aspect, it's Carson taking the wrong direction in the pocket and going directly where the sack is coming from, sort of thing. So it's like the chicken or the egg argument. Could you base it off the wide receivers not running the correct route and everything? Yeah, you could attribute it to that. Can you attribute it to the play calling and running a play action on a deep? And the linebackers, by the time the play action's going, the linebackers are already 5 feet deep. They're not falling for the play action. So all the play action is doing is allowing more time for the rushers to collapse in on the quarterback. There's so many different things here. But do I think it's all in one thing? No. All I know is that they have to be – I want them to move John Bates in as a fullback. What I've seen a lot of Sean McVay, what he does with the guy number 18, Skroenik, what he does is he lines him up as a fullback and uses him to block as a lead blocker, then also uses him on play action rollouts and pass plays. I would love to see us use that with John Bates. Run blocking is his forte. Allow him to be the lead blocker and then be able to dictate defenses off of that with play action when they expect the run. I want to see stuff like that happen. I'm sure Scott Turner's and they're well aware of that possibility and being able to do that. It's just, I don't know, man. It just seems like we can't produce anything on the ground consistently. We don't have that one couple plays to be able just to get us a first down. We don't have that play right now, and it's crazy.
Right. One of the things I've noticed too on offense is it seems like once, like, Scott Turner is a young coordinator, and when things are going great, he's fantastic. I mean, but when things go wrong with his first 15 scripted plays or however many it is, it seems like then he kind of struggles to get into any sort of groove because he doesn't know which direction to go. And maybe he's got to do something where he's just better at scripting it and catching the defense off guard. Because the last 2 weeks, both teams have come out completely prepared for whatever we were doing. And it's just, I don't know if that's a him thing, a team not executing, or what, but something's got to change, man. He's got to change something up, but he can do it. He's a smart guy. So
I was thinking about this earlier, like, just because I was bored at work. So, like the past 2 years, he's had X amount of different quarterbacks, and he hasn't really been able to use the whole playbook. And there's been a lot of horizontal passing game and a lot of quick stuff.
Right.
And I just feel like he's in his head too much right now because he finally has that big arm quarterback, and he finally feels like, okay, I can open up the playbook. So
he can use 50 more pages than he used to be.
Everything I call has to be like a deep shot, or it has to be a big play, and it's just like the Jacksonville game, work your way down the field and then open up the deep stuff later on in the game. And it's just I feel like he's working backwards, trying to open up the deep stuff, and then when that doesn't work, it's like, I got to keep going deep. I got to keep going deep. And then when that doesn't finally work, okay, now I'll switch it up to the quick game. And it's just like, if you just flip that, like as far as like I said, starting off with the short, quick stuff and then working your way down the field, I think this offense would move the ball a lot better.
Yeah, they were 6 of 17 on third downs yesterday, which isn't great. But defensively, they held the Eagles to 5 of 15. They give up 400 passing yards though, and then 328 actually, and they gave up 8. Washington only threw for 153 passing yards, including those sack numbers. So it'll tell you that Carson threw for 200 yards, 211, but in reality, they only threw for $153, which is just horrible. And when you watch the film, there's like these plays where the DBs have everything literally covered, and by that time that you see everything covered, Carson Wentz is getting sacked, and so it's really weird, Colonel. It's like not one thing, it's another. They know what's coming. They know our tendencies. They know what we like to do in certain situations. They know what to expect out of certain formations, knowing that the slot guy is always going to be running a crosser and having 2 guys prepared for him at all times. I don't know, man. Things just need to lighten up. But we are now joined by our next guest, Mr. Coach Greg Curl. How are you doing, sir? We brought you on here to get us happy because it's a somber Monday, sir. How are you doing?
I might have got the wrong one, bro. I'm somber too, bro. That was ugly yesterday, man.
It was ugly, but I wanted to get your opinion because obviously Kam did not play in weeks 1 and 2, but he came out yesterday, was the second leading tackler, 1 tackle
had
for
a
loss,
monster hit too.
8 tackles on the day, so he kind of came back to form. I want to get your opinion. How did you feel Kam played yesterday?
He played pretty good. Knowing he still got to knock a little rust off. He cramped up in the fourth quarter, because he ain't been out there, so he's ready. He looked good. He looked back.
Yeah.
He's ready to get out there, but, it's going to take more than 1, 2, 3, 4 people,
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Kam can't weigh all the weight on his shoulders. Yeah, your internet's a little bit slow, but it's fine. You're good. Obviously, they're going to be getting Chase Young back here soon as well. But let's go on to our next question. This is from the Colonel. Reed, I'll go to you first. If any of you saw something that we can be hopeful about, please share. He says, right now, I'm still numb from that ass whooping.
So, all right. So early on in the game, especially early on in the game, look, I know the pass defense didn't do too well, but you could tell that the communication early on was better. And I think a lot of that's attributed to Kam being there, kind of being that quarterback back there. And Benjamin St. Juste early on. Benjamin St. using his length to swat some passes. He still had a decent game. And having him on the outside, you could tell that's where he's most comfortable. And I think that's where he probably is going to end up having a future in the NFL. And I think he's going to be a very solid corner for us going forward. I know it wasn't pretty, and I know that he did give up some plays, but early on, you really saw his attributes really come into play early on. And that's really that. And Jamin Davis had 2 sacks. Hey, look at Jamin, best pass rusher in the NFL.
We don't
7th
have
in the
much.
NFL in sacks.
Reed, you can't steal all of them. We need them for everybody. Coach, who's somebody that you get something that you're hopeful about from yesterday? No. Hey, you might have to restart your internet, Coach. You're chopping up pretty bad. Start us off, Hall.
Positive hope from yesterday, I would say Deron Payne has been on a tear for these first 3 weeks. I think that he's going to keep getting better. This defensive line is going to hopefully eventually start getting the sacks and the more pressures. I know yesterday they had a couple sacks, but it was kind of too late in the game for it to even really mean anything. But yeah, Deron Payne has definitely been a bright spot, and he's definitely playing for that bag, as the kids say.
Playing for that bag, yes, he is. What's something you can be hopeful about after yesterday's game? I don't know, the fact that we're going to the Super Bowl.
You should have taken that's scary.
No, I know. I want to go with my guy Terry, but I feel like Terry probably would still be pissed with the way that game.
Yeah.
I don't want to give props to Terry because we know what Terry's capable of, and it's been taking way too long for him to get involved in these games.
And you don't deserve props, Terry.
No, he does.
You come do my gardening work outside, you bum.
No, okay,
You'll
fine.
do nothing.
The bright spot is Terry still being able to get yardage, 6 receptions, 102 yards, 17 average, and then 9 targets on the day. Terry was a bright spot. I know, obviously, when you look at the offensive list, there's not much there, so if there's something to be happy about, it's the fact that the guy that we gave a big contract to is still producing, and that's something that you can be happy about. Coach, is your internet better now?
I don't know.
It sounds a little bit better.
What
Not
do you think?
just a little bit better.
Yeah.
But what's something that we can
Must
be happy
going
about,
on in
Coach?
the area.
You should start singing though. You sound auto-tuned. You sound like T-Pain.
T-Pain. I'm in love with a stripper.
Hey, dude, he can really sing. Have you heard him without auto-tune? Dude, he's amazing.
Yeah.
I was like, why didn't you just do this the whole time, my guy? But anyway.
But, Coach, what is something that the fan base can be hopeful about?
Ooh. Well, the improvement on third down.
Thank you.
There you go.
That's a good
Yeah.
The improvement on third down. Red zone defense looked a little better. Yeah. We got gashed on some big plays. We can control the big plays. We'll be all right. And we have our biggest problem with containing mobile quarterbacks. I think when they can get to move around in the pocket, because you're only getting 3. I don't care who you are. I mean, DB, whoever, you're only getting a good 3.5 seconds of coverage anyway.
Right.
When that quarterback get to running around and scrambling, you can't cover forever. You can.
Right.
I mean, you can't. It's backyard ball now. So and some of those big plays, and some of those plays that they made was just nice ass throws and nice catches.
Yeah.
Defense was right there.
Jalen
How many
Hurts has been
times
playing out of his mind.
How many times did Kendall Fuller have a hand on that ball? I mean,
Yeah,
I know.
my goodness, dude. And it's just like you want him to rip it out, just get.
Yeah.
How do you let Devontae Smith's 160-pound frame rip the ball away from you? I don't think he could rip it away from my 2-year-old. He's built like he just got off Survivor. He's built like Tom Hanks in Philadelphia. He's
You
a
gotta
literal
love the weight
beanbag.
room, man. You gotta love the weight room.
You are hilarious, dude. No, but you are absolutely right, Coach, and I do agree with you in that breath because they have been better on third downs, and that's something to be happy about. But also on the ground, we were all flipping out last week after they were gashed on the ground. They weren't gashed on the ground for this. They only allowed 72 rushing yards, and then obviously Hurts
Philly was the best rush offense in the NFL coming into this game, right?
Right, and then they didn't allow
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts to escape out of the pocket, to be able to get those extra yardage downfield like he did against Detroit. They did exactly what I wanted them to do and say, okay, pass to beat me, and they did. So
we shouldn't have questions like this because it's getting me all excited. I'm like, damn, we actually did do some good things, and now all of a sudden I already forgot about this L, and I'm like, let's move on to Dallas, man. It's Dallas week. We're gonna win on Sunday. And I gotta stop doing that.
yeah.
I gotta remember the pain.
yes. No, you got to have hope, Reed, and that's all this is about. But let's move on to our next question. This is from
I'm
Andy
like a
Lockhart
goldfish.
in the Discord chat server. I'm going to go to you with this, Coach. Do you think Ron is oblivious to this team's problems? Like he talking about the players have to do better, etc. But for me, scheme and personnel decisions are the biggest problems. Has Del Rio got dirt on Ron or something? That must be the reason why he's still on the job.
I think Coach Rivera is just very optimistic. When he first came here, he said, give him 3 to 5 years. This is year 3. If I don't, and I believe if we don't see either a trend towards improvement or improvement, that he will make changes.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. The one thing about, I know, Andy, I know what you're saying, and I know that what we want Ron Rivera to say, but what he's saying to the players, what he's saying to the coaches is not what he's saying to the media. He's not going to come out in the media and say, yeah, he was horseshit on this play. He's not going to do that. He's going to say we're going to work on it. We're going to try to get better. But I guarantee you that's what he's saying in the meeting room. That's what he's saying to him on the practice field. And I understand everyone's saying about his sidelines and being whatever.
That's just Ron, though.
Yeah, I understand what you mean, but you also have to remember if a coach gets emotional for every game on the sideline, then every time he gets emotional, it loses its luster. So when Ron Rivera gets hyped, when he does on that sideline, it's going to have some weight to it because guys are going to be like, holy crap, he never is like this. There is a time for it, and Coach Ron Rivera is doing things his way. Allow him to go about it. I'm sure inside he's probably screaming. He's probably like, what the
The locker room, I guarantee you is.
Yeah,
I
just like
guarantee
all of
he's
us.
fucking going
Just like
crazy
all of
on
us.
those guys.
Like,
yeah.
I guarantee you in that locker room, he's doing exactly what that Bills OC was doing at the end of that Miami game, just beating the crap out of his
his headset. Yeah.
His headset and everything. I'm sure that's what he wants, but he can't show that because he's a leader of men. So
other thing,
I don't know, man. He did it in Carolina a lot. As soon as he got here, I mean, I know like the whole cancer thing and everything.
Oh no!
Oh, there it is. It's always around this time.
Your sound went out, dude. You were about to make a great point too.
I know, but there's with Ron. I don't know. I get why people are upset and it's understand how it comes across, but at the same time, could you imagine if Ron went in there and it's just like, we're fucked. We're done. I don't know what to do right now. I'm about to just fire everybody and nobody's playing good. I got to sign all these new players. It's week 3, everybody. It's okay. It'll, I don't know. But yeah, I get why it's frustrating.
Yeah.
For sure.
Could you imagine if Ron Rivera came out and was like, yeah, Trey Turner sucks.
Or just guys, I don't know what happened today.
Right. He's like, dude, I don't know.
I wasn't paying attention.
I don't know what Scott Turner was doing last week because we were scheming up stuff. I don't know what he was doing, though. What do you want him to do?
Maybe he should stop spending all that time with that stripper and start spending time at home with his family to start throwing him under the bus or something.
Right.
Yeah.
What is he supposed I understand what everyone is saying, but at some point we have to understand that all he is a shield for the team. And what he's trying to do is keep the fire stop from happening. He does not want this to bubble into a complete catastrophe, into a volcano, which I know to the fan base it seems that way, but it's probably not that way in the locker room.
Real fast, can I say something on that too? A lot of people were talking about how Ron seemed like he was super upset about the Jimmy G thing getting out. That's why, though, because they've done such a good job of stopping leaks, and that's why he was upset about it, because it's he does all this and then this comes out and it's just another thing with the media, and it's that's why he was pissed about it, because it got out, not because it's going to offend Carson or something.
Ron knows
pissed off that another leak happened.
Ron knows exactly what I know as to why that stupid thing was produced when it was. It's irrelevant, doesn't help anybody at all. But that being said, let's move on to our next question. And all I'll say is Ron Rivera was in the right when saying he was pissed off about it, because people were saying, oh, he's trying to push it onto the media instead of his own problems and his being accountable. I guarantee Ron Rivera would have had that same exact quote if you would have asked him pregame, but there wasn't a microphone in front of his face.
Right.
That being said, let's move on to the next question, Coach. I'm going to get to your answer on this. This is from our guy, Big Tony Shivers. What's up, Tony? Fans on social media are calling this season a wrap, wanting to fire Ron Rivera and ready to tank for Stroud. Do you feel like that?
No. Heck no, man. It's just week 3, man.
Exactly.
It's just week 3. I mean, heck, there's teams that went 0-2 and the fan base freaking threw them out the window, wouldn't even go to the games, and end up going to the Super Bowl.
The Bengals were 0-2, right?
Yeah. So yeah, it's too early, but you're gonna have that no matter where you're at. Every fan base got those guys. That as soon as something go wrong, they jump in ship.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, because I can't handle the heat. At the water cooler tomorrow when I get to work.
Right.
They're talking about my team. So
you're absolutely right
So
about
true.
that. The pride has left, and so to speak. I think it's bigger here in Washington than it is in other areas. But that being said, I don't think the fans are wrong about it. I don't feel like we should be getting ready to tank. I don't feel like anything should be happening.
To tank.
Yeah. That's what it said.
I
know, but I'm saying the fans that because there are people that are saying that right now. It's just what are you?
I had to reread the way he wrote it. I was like, did I say it wrong? What did I do?
No, I'm laughing because it's who starts
such a
tanking
ridiculous thing after week 3?
Yeah, who starts tanking in a 17-week season after week 3? What? They could go on a 14-game winning streak and be 14-3. Then what people are gonna say?
Right.
I mean, it's not going to happen, but I'm just saying.
You never know. No, I don't feel like that, Tony. I do feel like this team is going to show that they are the team kind of in between of where they were in week 1 and week 2. I do feel like these past 2 weeks, Reed likes to make fun of me a lot when I talk about Pokemon cards, but the matchups being water and fire and stuff like that, the Eagles and Lions were literally perfectly set up for us because we're depleted offensive line and defensive line. That's where they were strengths at. They want to punch you in the mouth, and we weren't ready for it, essentially. So I'm not ready to jump ship. I think this can be this this can be right. You know, they can fix it. The issues that they have, I do think it's all on them. Essentially, like it's not like they're not good enough. It's just things aren't working like they should. And so when they iron that out, things should calm down. They really should. But it seemed like they got in their head yesterday, man, and that is a big concern for me.
If there's one thing we know about this team, and remember, Ron Rivera's been here coaching this team, it's that at some point in the season they're going to go on a 3 or 4 game win streak.
Yeah,
and they're going to work their way back into the mix somehow. And yeah, so they'll do just enough to like get everyone's hopes up again, and we'll see where it goes from there. But for the people to be like, oh, throw the season away, 3 games, or oh, we're never going to be anything. It's like
Ron's a dinosaur.
Dude,
this happens every year.
I watched Ron's press conference on YouTube. I crap you not. There was some dude in the comments in it that said, "Bring back Jay Gruden." I'm not kidding, dude. I'm not kidding. That was a good. It made me laugh. Now, Coach, the next question we have is from Scott Hartley. It's the last one of the day. Forget yesterday. It's done. My boy from the UK. Having seen 3 games now, has your picture of the team changed, and how many wins do you see coming for the rest of the campaign?
Sticking with my 10 win. I picked 10 I'm standing by my guns, man. I don't care what it look like right now. I think these boys they're gonna get it done. I mean, it's just little things on the O-line. It's just little things, and I'm not gonna put it all on the O-line. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know why the heck we doing 7-step drops. I don't even know why we doing 5-step drops. We with what we have and the speed we have, after 3, we should be doing 3-step drops and getting the ball out. Bam. Let's move the field. But they don't pay me that kind of money to coach the NFL team. So
keeps going like this, they might. Yeah.
What I'll say is, like, Coach, I do think you're right, essentially, because unless you're running the football effectively, that's when that 7-step drop works, right? Because teams are actually expecting that run. Yeah. But unless you're running the ball effectively, they're not really going to be scared of it, which we saw last week against the Eagles, where we were doing play action. They didn't care. Reed, how about you? Has your view changed at all?
No, not really. I think my view has become more realistic after week 1. And this is a team a lot of people are in new positions on this team, talking about like a new quarterback, Scott Turner, being able to use more of his playbook. And it's going to take some time, but I do think that this team we know what kind of potential this team has. We know that it's just going to take them a little bit. And once they get it right, this offense is going to be very good. We saw last year, the defense, remember, it was always, if the defense could just contain people, the defense started to contain people, just the offense couldn't put up points. If that happens this year and this defense flips it around, which they very well could, once they get chased back and a couple of things that start getting more comfortable, Jamin starts playing better like the linebacker we think he could, if that happens, you know what I'm saying? But the D-line starts actually getting to the quarterback. They're putting pressure on him, but actually sacking the quarterback. And this offense is the way that it is. And Brian Robinson's back. Look out, this team's going to win a good amount of games. And I still think that they're going to win around 9 games or so. It's early in the season. It'll be okay. And this team has a lot of potential. So I still honestly believe that.
My view has changed. My wins have regressed since before this season. Just because the lack of depth on the offensive line and defensive line, I think is going to be a concern moving forward. Said this for a while. I was concerned about the offensive line's injuries in preseason because injuries do not fix themselves. And when you're playing football every week, generally those injuries are not going to go away. They're going to get worse. And so it has regressed, but I am still optimistic this is a double-digit win team. They just have to find themselves. One of my biggest concerns is it seems like there's no confidence out there. Like there's nobody out there saying you're not going to do this to me. And that wasn't evident on the offensive line, essentially. And that's my biggest concern moving forward, because when you get in those cold weather games, you're going to need that attitude because teams are going to want to punch you in the mouth. And that is a concern, but I do think that they will be able to get it fixed. It's on them if they're motivated enough, if they have the effort. I know some people are saying, well, Ron Rivera needs to get these guys motivated. These guys are professionals. This is their name on the back of their jersey. They're the ones getting dogged. Yes. They should be motivated to want to do better. Ron Rivera shouldn't have to do that.
That's right. These are
grown-ass men. This ain't little league. You don't got to – it's in high school football. You don't got to get in the guy's face and yell at them to motivate them. Yeah. Like, they're getting paid millions of dollars, and they're like
tell
you said,
them to remember.
Yeah, their names are on the back of their jersey. They're the ones getting dogged on social media and by the media and like wherever else. So it's not like they want to come out there. They're waking up being like, you know what? Who cares? We lost. Like, no. I mean, there probably is some people in the NFL like that, but not like
you don't got to make them relive
people. But
you don't got to make them relive childhood trauma. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Just to motivate them.
but I mean, my view of the team, yeah, it's changed a little bit. Like honestly, because my view of the team before the season was they're going to be 10 wins plus competing for the division title, and it's kind of evident. It's only 3 games in, small sample size, but as of right now, it looks like Philly's going to run away with the division. So with that being said, I still think they can get a wild card spot with 9 wins, but I'm going to give it to kind of like Brian Mitchell. I'm going to give it till week 6 to kind of form my full opinion, because that's like a little less than half the season. And I think by week 6, they have enough game film out there where teams kind of know what you're going to do. They can make adjustments and kind of play you from that. So if they're still looking like this by week 6, coming off the Bears, I think it's we say week 6.
Yeah, that's week 6.
And they're still looking the same, then my opinion will change even more. But as of right now, it's changed slightly. I'm going to take them down from 10 plus to around probably 9 wins and a wild card spot.
Okay, Hall, I didn't expect that out of you, sir.
Honestly, it's only because if you look at the rest of the NFC, as of right now, the rest of the NFC is not very competitive.
Yeah, I know.
Everyone's kind of like that middle to bottom tier.
No,
I mean, you got
and it's realistic that you say that. I just thought that you would be more dysfunctional like me. You know, like a little bit more psychotic.
I try not to let one game sway me one way or the other.
Right.
But again, like I say, if it's 6 weeks of this, you're gonna see a different Mike.
Yeah.
But as of right now,
if it's 6 weeks of this, you guys are going to be talking me down off of a literal ledge from the top of a parking lot. For 6 weeks? Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm not as concerned with the D-line as I am as much as the O-line with these injuries. But I will say I'm very concerned about Jonathan Allen, especially with he's playing hurt right now, dude, and he's going so hard, doing a lot of work, and I just don't want to see him work himself out of the season. And that's what my biggest concern is with this defensive line depth, is that basically Daniel Wise, all those guys, it's making us really thin, and I'm concerned about the season long, and that's why my view has regressed.
My view has changed on Jonathan Allen, dude. That dude is so I just got back from the doctor's for I'm in their parking lot, but I pinched a nerve in my groin. Worst feeling in the world. Like I can barely move. I'm on the couch. It's like shooting pains. It's like burning and stuff. The fact that dude's playing, I don't even want to move when I'm laying down. Yeah. Oh, it's the tingly feelings. That shut up, Paul. My groin. It burns when I pee, and there's like blisters all over down it.
Yeah, you went to the wrong doctor, brother.
Yeah, and it's like I barely want to move with a groin injury, and this dude's out there playing games and moving men around. What are you? That's why he snatches souls during the off season.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. But thank you guys for coming in and joining us and helping us get over this loss yesterday. But this is Dallas week. I know a lot of people are somber. Don't even think we could beat Dallas. I think it's laughable. Dallas is obviously beatable regardless of how we play. They're not Philadelphia. That being said, I really appreciate you, Coach Girl, being able to come on here and talk to us. I know you're very busy yourself. We tried to do this before, but stuff happens. But I can't thank you enough for coming here and joining us, brother.
Always,
it really is a
brother.
pleasure.
Always.
You're my
Hell
man.
yeah.
Sir.
All
We
right,
gotta
everybody.
catch you next time you're at a game too, man.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I'll let you guys know ahead of time next one I come to.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm trying to say maybe Reed will actually show up this time.
Maybe, probably not if we keep playing like this. I'm not spending money on this shit.
All right, everybody. Let's go wrap us up for this episode. Want to hear from you guys. What's your therapy statement? What are you going to say about this team? We want to hear what you think about our thoughts. What do you think about the season? Has your view regressed at all? We want to hear from you guys. All right, everybody. I'm Kyle.
I'm Hall.
And apparently I have an STD. I learned.
Beat the cow turds.
All right, everybody. Thank you so
All
much.
right.
Just going to wrap us up. Check us out again on Thursday evening. Don't miss out on that episode. All right, everybody. Washington football. Woo! Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Kyle. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. And if you liked what you saw, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you get notified when anything new is uploaded to the channel. Also, we just launched theburgundyzone.com. You can go there and find all of our latest news, articles, and the latest episodes that are uploaded. Again, we also have the Discord chat server, where all of our VIP folks are in, like Andy Burrows, Scott Hartley, Sergio Martin is in there as well. Don't miss out on the Discord chat server. Go and check that out. Until next time, everybody, Washington football. Woo!